Hi, and welcome to your second video lesson for violin and viola. Today we are going to be learning the names of the strings on your instrument, how to pluck the strings on your instrument, and how to bow the instrument, as well as how to properly hold the instrument while you're doing all of these things. First, we are going to be learning how to pluck the instrument in what is called the ukulele style. Miss Julia will demonstrate how to hold the instrument in this style.
So first you're going to make sure that your right hand has a good hold on the bottom of the violin or the viola as you are getting it into position, just so that's nice and safe. Your left hand is going to hold with what I like to call the shoulder of the violin or viola. And you're just gonna grip it not super tightly, so you're going to potentially break your instrument, which would not be good.
No.
But just grip it enough that it's not gonna fall if you let go with your right hand, because you're gonna be plucking with your right hand. For plucking in the ukulele position, we want our fingers just lightly resting on the side of the fingerboard so that our thumb can do the actual plucking.
Let's begin on the violin. Hold your violin up, and we are going to be plucking with our thumb. Make sure that when you're plucking the strings of your instrument, you pluck over the fingerboard and not in between the fingerboard and the bridge where your bow goes. We want to do this to avoid getting the oils on our fingers where the rosin will be on our strings. The first string that we pluck is the furthest string from your fingers, and that is the G string. After that, we have the D string. Then we have the A string. And finally, we have the E string. Let's go through and pluck each one of those strings 4 times in a row. Ready, go. Now that we've learned the names of our strings and how to pluck those strings, we're going to learn how to properly hold the instrument upright on your shoulder. But before we do that, we're going to look a little bit into posture. When thinking about posture for your instrument, you always want to be thinking about having an active posture and not an inactive or lazy posture. One thing to always avoid is sitting against the back of your chair or leaning against the back of your chair. You should always be sitting on the edge of your chair while you're practicing. Make sure that while you're sitting on the edge, you're also not slouched over. Your back should be upright so that you feel tall in your seat while you're sitting. In addition to this, make sure that your feet are firmly planted on the floor, slightly separated, about a shoulder width apart. You don't want to be sitting cross-legged or with the leg up or anything like that. Make sure your feet are down. Now that we've really gotten our posture looking solid, we are going to get our instrument up on our shoulder. Miss Julia, how do we approach holding our instrument when it's upright on our shoulder?
Well, first you want to get your shoulder rest on your shoulder, and a good thing to remember is that it might be natural to have your violin or viola kind of facing forward like this, because then you can see the strings easily, but we don't actually want to hold it that way. We want to hold it to the side. So you're going to get your shoulder rest on your shoulder. Remember the yellow shoulder rest that we've provided you with, and you're going to put your chin, you're going to look slightly to your left, and you're just going to put your chin on the chin rest, leaving your hand in that position we taught with the ukulele, where we have a firm grip on the shoulder of the violin. Then for plucking, you're going to take your right thumb and you're going to put it on the corner of the fingerboard so that your fingers, specifically your index fingers, are available for plucking.
Now that we have our instrument in an upright position, we're going to pluck each of the strings, starting from the G string. Remember that the G string is the furthest away from where your thumb will be. Ready? Let's pluck and name the strings simultaneously, beginning with G, then moving to D, then we have A, and finally we have E. Go through and practice plucking each of these and naming them simultaneously to really get used to where each string is on your instrument. Now that we have our instrument on our shoulder, we're going to look at the other part of the instrument, the bow, and how to properly hold the bow.
We're going to start with one finger at a time. So first, we're going to start with our thumb. You want to put your thumb underneath underneath the stick next to the frog. Next, our index finger is going to lay gently in front of the thumb and on top of the stick. Next, our middle finger is going to just gently kiss our thumb. They're friends, so they want to stay together. Our ring finger is going to be either on or very close to this little porthole here. It's a little white circle. Then our pinky is going to rest on top of the stick, nice and rounded, like so. Remember, we're practicing doing this one finger at a time until you get super used to just automatically going into this position.
So now that we have a solid handle on holding our instrument and holding the bow, we're now going to move into actually bowing each of the strings of our instrument, either the violin or the viola. All right, Miss Julia, would you like to hold up your instrument for us and show us, firstly, where do we place the bow on the strings?
We'd love to show that. So once we have our instrument up on our shoulder, we want to make sure that our bow stays in the middle of the bridge and the fingerboard. So there's a little space in between, as you can say, and there's a little space in between, as you can see, and you want to make sure that your bow stays as close to the center of that space as possible. So I'm going to put my bow down right here, just like so. So for bowing itself, we want to make sure that when we place our bow down, we're not pushing down super hard, but we're also not barely touching it, because if you barely touch it, it's not going to make a very clean sound, and if you put it down too hard, it's going to make a really gross sound, and we don't want that.
Can you demonstrate
I
what
would
that
love
sounds
to.
like for us?
So a
Wonderful.
really hard sound, if you put a lot of pressure down, is going to sound like this. No, I don't like that.
Not what
I
we
don't
want.
like that. If you go too light, you can barely, I don't know if you guys can hear it, I can barely hear it, and I'm right next to this thing, and it's skipping a lot. So what you want to do is you want to put your bow down, but have a very natural weight to it. So you pretty much just want to put your bow down without putting any extra pressure on, and then it should slide smoothly. Just like that.
So now that we know where our bow goes on the instrument, we're going to practice bowing each string individually with a down bow, moving our arm towards our leg, and an up bow, moving our arm away from our leg. Miss Julia, how do we do this?
First, you want to put your bow on your string, just like we taught, as close to the frog, not as close to the frog as you can get it, but fairly close. And then you're going to slowly pull your bow across the string all the way down, and you want to make sure that you're not pulling your arm towards your side, because that's going to pull your bow off of the center where we said that we wanted to keep our bow. So you're going to try to keep your bow going towards the floor, not necessarily towards your knee or your side, but you want to try and keep the end of your bow going straight towards the floor. And that should look something like this. And then when you go up, you want to start at as far up as you can reach. And you're again going to place it in the center of the string, or in the center of the bridge and the fingerboard if it's not already on the string. And you're going to just do the exact opposite motion. So you want to push the bow up and as much of a straight line as you can get. It'll look a little something like this.
So right now, we're practicing doing this on the A string on your violin. What we want you to do is we want you to practice doing each of these bow motions on each string of either instrument, whichever you're playing. So start on your highest string, which is either the E string for the violin or the A string for the viola, and then work your way down through each individual string. Take your time and really focus on getting a solid motion throughout. For practice this week, we want you to work through the 3 different things that we've worked on in this video. That is plucking in the ukulele position, plucking in an upright position, and bowing your instrument. A really good method to practice when you're doing any of these is to use a mirror.
Especially for your bowing practice, you can use the mirror for any of your practices, but for the bowing practice, we would love if you would find a mirror in your house. It doesn't really matter what size it is or where it is, just a mirror. And you're going to stand in front of your mirror with your violin or viola on your shoulder, and you're going to practice bowing and watch yourself in the mirror to make sure that your bow is staying in the center where it's supposed to be.
So make sure that you have a fun time practicing this week, and we will see you next week.